Most Battle Royale games are lost in the first 5 minutes, and players don't even realize it yet. Today, we're talking about early game rotations, your drop, your first move, and why that decision sets the tone for the entire match. Here's the real problem I see early game, and it starts before anyone even hits the ground. Most players choose their drop based on one thing: what's under them. They don't ask how many teams can realistically contest this. They don't think about what their exit looks like if the loot isn't there, and they definitely aren't thinking about where this position puts them as the circle closes. So, before we even talk about rotating early, how to play the late game, or anything else, we need a better way to think about where we start and how we leave. Your drop isn't only about loot, it's about options. So, with that in mind, let's talk about the core aspects to consider before your feet touch the ground. Contestability. How many teams can realistically contest this spot? A lot of this is based off the path of the helicopter and distance from it. For the average player, you could reasonably assume that if there are 0 teams, that's free control for you. 1 team is still very playable. 2 teams, you're stretching it a little bit. And 3 or more teams, you're definitely paying the chaos tax. Outlets. If the loot is bad or the drop is too hot, how do we leave? Do we have multiple exits? Do we have access to vehicles? Is there natural cover between POIs? If your only exit is back through the teams that landed with you, that's not a plan, that's a gamble. Repositionability. Where does this drop put us given the information we have? Are we deep in the zone? Are we on the edge? Are we boxed in between multiple hot POIs? A good drop doesn't box you into a corner. It keeps your options open. And finally, early intel. Does this location allow us the opportunity to see the lobby as it moves? We're looking for drops that give us vision, high ground, open angles, and clear sight lines. From here, we can watch where teams land, track who's close, and predict who's going to rotate through us. The goal is to be able to gather as much information as you can to inform your decisions. Because the teams you see early are the teams you don't get surprised by later. Remember, pick drops that give you options, not excuses. So, with core in mind, let's walk through a few drop scenarios and how we think about them.
Make your way to that point.
Let's start with a drop that should have been low risk. We're at the end of the plane path, on the edge of the map. On paper, this scores low on contestability. Most teams can't reach it, and historically this spot isn't a hot drop. But 2 other teams made the same read. And this is important. Even when you apply core correctly, Battle Royales still have randomness. Core doesn't remove risk, it helps you manage it. What saves this situation is early intel. This position still sits on high ground, we can see multiple nearby POIs, track rotations, and understand where pressure will come from. And we also have zip lines built into that POI, and that gives us repositioning options once we're ready to leave. So the drop worked, but now the question is how we turn that into a winning position, which we'll get to later in the video. For this scenario, we're doing something that might look risky at first. We're dropping near the center of the map, inside the first circle, right next to Defense Nexus. Now, if you play this map, you already know Nexus is usually a hot drop, and this is a great example of managing contestability. While Nexus is contested almost every game, this outer building usually isn't. It lets us stay close enough to benefit from the location without paying the chaos tax of landing directly inside it. The outlets here are strong. We have a clean rotation path into ground zero with excellent natural cover along the way. We can also pull straight back to the zip lines toward the southern houses of golf course across the river. That means if the loot is weak or pressure builds, we have multiple ways to disengage without crossing open ground. We're also very deep into the first circle, which is great. This gives us early positional advantage and flexibility for mid-game decisions. We also get some great opportunities for early intel here, especially when on the second story of the building. From here, we can watch Nexus fights unfold from distance and monitor teams rotating across the river and off the far hills. That visibility lets us predict pressure before it reaches us. This drop works because it gives us proximity to strong loot and positioning while still preserving our options.
I hear that.
For scenario 3, we're dropping at the top of the seal, one of my personal favorites. And this is one of those rare drops where the circle, terrain, and wind condition all line up. The seal isn't free, but it's predictable, and if teams want to access this position with us, they have to cross our line of sight on the way in. That's controllable contestability, not random chaos. Outlets here are excellent. There's usually a vehicle spawn. In this game, we get an ATV. That gives us instant flexibility if the game state changes. We can rotate into solar, combat training, or even just the eastern hills once the loadout drops without crossing too much dead space. Once we take control, we don't need to push far, if at all, given this circle. This is a holdable position with strong internal movement and multiple exits. And the early intel here is insane. Any team rotating from combat training, radar sight, or solar has to show themselves, and we can see them long before they can influence us. And the final bonus, multiple contracts spawn inside the seal, and that means we can progress the game without giving up our position. This is what it looks like when your drop solves problems before they exist. And now that we know how to assess a good drop, let's now see how we turn that into a winning rotation. Before we talk about routes or timing, we have to decide one thing. Where do we want to end up on our first rotation out of the drop? Too many players land, loot, and then wait for the game to tell them where to go next. Instead, while we're looting, we're already thinking ahead. What position do we want to be playing from after we leave this POI? What area gives us options, cover, or information when we get there? This isn't about locking anything down yet. It's about giving ourselves direction with purpose. When you decide where you want to end up early, every other decision gets easier. Now that we know the destination, we can ask the next question. Once you determine where you want to end up, you need to evaluate your routes to get there, and for each one, think about who could potentially be in your way. Early rotation isn't always about speed, it's also about permission. If nobody can punish you right now, that's your window. The straight line isn't always the fastest way in BR. Keep in mind your cover along the way and any teams you've seen in the distance when plotting your course. If you've seen a ton of activity on the minimap going left and radio silence going right, that's your window to take before it closes. Every rotation should solve a future problem. Later in the game, these are usually cover, height, and third-party risks, to name a few. In the early game, however, the problem we're often trying to solve is a lack of supplies. If your rotation doesn't solve a problem, it probably creates one. Now remember, just because a rotation will give you access to something that you need, like a loadout for instance, doesn't mean it's a good rotation to take. And that's why we need to look across all three questions to determine if this is the right rotation for us.
83, broke.
Let's pick up where we left off at Scenario 1. After the fights, we reassess. The problem we're trying to solve here is supplies and perk progression. We're not thinking final circle yet, we just want to end up in an area with more loot, contracts, and better mid-game positioning. We check our routes. No teams in sight. No recent activity on the minimap. This is the window. Early rotation isn't about speed, it's about permission. And if nobody can punish us right now, that's when we move. This rotation gives us more loot, more XP, and access to contracts. On paper, it solves the exact problem that we're facing as we take the zip lines away. And then a helicopter flies in and kills us. Hey, that's Battle Royale. Sometimes you do everything right and still lose. If that helicopter doesn't show up, this is a textbook early game rotation. It gives us access to better resources, better position, and momentum going into the mid game. The decision was sound, even if the outcome wasn't. In these situations, it's important to remember, we judge rotations by the quality of the decision, not the kill cam. On to the next one. After a quiet looting phase, we reassess. The problem we're trying to solve now is for separation. We know multiple teams will collide at Nexus as the circle closes, and we don't want to be a part of that traffic. We want to position somewhere that gives us space, resources, and leverage heading into the mid-game. Next, we evaluate our routes. We choose to rotate through the natural cover between Nexus and Ground Zero. That cover removes sightlines and limits who can punish us. Remember, early rotation isn't about speed, it's about permission. And right now, we haven't seen or heard anyone in a position to stop us. And here's where pathing matters. The natural terrain shields us from a helicopter passing overhead, unlike another scenario. And good pathing doesn't just move us forward, it removes threats we might never even see.
What? Hello?
After securing the seal, we do exactly what this position is built for. We hold, stabilize, and farm value. We knock out enough contracts to get all of our perks. One of these contracts even gives us a custom loadout. But rotation decisions aren't about whether you can stay, they're about whether moving solves a future problem. We want another loadout, and the counterintelligence contract tells us exactly where that opportunity is. Solar. That doesn't mean solar is the move because the contract spawned there. It means solar is worth considering if it makes sense positionally as well. In this case, solar checks the same boxes as the seal. It's deep in the zone, it has high ground, and it gives us strong control over future rotations. The contract doesn't create the rotation. The position justifies it. Before we commit, we slow everything down, because the fastest way to throw a good rotation is to assume it's safe. There's one team in our path. They're isolated, and they're unaware of us. This rotation solves a big problem for us. It gives us a second loadout, and it removes a nearby threat. And this is what synergy looks like. Chessman opens with the bomb from his drone. I follow with a snipe for the down. We split angles, apply pressure, and close the fight cleanly. We win the position, we secure the second custom loadout, and we remove one more team from the endgame equation. This is what calculated aggression looks like. You don't rotate to avoid fights, you rotate so the fight favors you. Early game rotations are where you decide whether you're playing offense or defense for the rest of the match. I hope these ideas help you improve your gameplay. If you've been following along at home and you're wondering, what do I do now that the mid-game's here? Good news! I'll be putting out a video on how to do that in the near future, so subscribe so you don't miss it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the final circle.
Hi.
Oh my god, bro.